There is not a single oil refinery left in Russia that has not yet been attacked by Ukrainian drones. Last night, Ukrainian drones flew 1,500 kilometers and struck Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat in Bashkortostan. This was the last major gasoline producer in Russia that had not yet been hit in 2026. There are no untouched refineries left, now only repeated attacks until complete destruction. The cost of this night is minus 11,000 tons of fuel per day, which is about 1/5 of Russia's total domestic demand. Meanwhile, in the Altai region at the same time, the district administration officially states that fuel is only being given to the police, firefighters, hospitals, and energy workers. And now the most important thing, agriculture. Agriculture and public utilities are on the verge of shutting down. And let me remind you, it's currently harvest season. And now a State Duma deputy from the Altai region says that a food crisis is brewing in the region and in the country as a whole. Sorry, there will be nothing to eat. In this episode, we'll talk about what exactly burned down today, what's happening in the Russian regions, and why all of this has stopped being just a coincidence. This is already a system, and a constant one at that. It's been turned into an assembly line operation. And most importantly, what made Putin hysterically announce a large-scale problem for all of Russia. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, please subscribe to the channel. We're moving toward the 300,000 subscribers mark. I'd personally be grateful if you subscribed. So, on the night of July 14, drones of the armed forces of Ukraine attacked one of Russia's largest petrochemical complexes, the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat oil refinery in Bashkortostan. The distance from the border with Ukraine is 1,500 kilometers. Eyewitnesses report numerous impacts and a column of black smoke over the plant. According to the Ukrainian monitoring channel Supernova, the primary oil distillation units were reportedly hit, AVT-6 and the 20th workshop where high-density polyethylene is produced. So, the strike hit the very heart of the plant, in the processing area.
It's clear, basically, the BVT units were hit, the acid pump station.
Why did this particular attack become a turning point? The thing is, Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat was the last major gasoline producer in Russia that hadn't yet been affected by Ukrainian strikes in 2026. As a result, that's minus 11,000 tons of gasoline in daily deliveries to the Russian Federation market, or about 5% of the country's internal fuel demand. The scale of the enterprise in 2024, the latest data is only for 2024, shows that this plant processed more than 7 million tons of raw materials, producing 1.5 million tons of gasoline and about 2.5 million tons of diesel fuel. And now listen to how the Russian authorities describe all of this. The head of Bashkortostan, Radi Kabirov, confirmed the raid on the industrial zone of Salavat, noting only that the drone attack was completely repelled. And on the spot, there were, quote, just a few pockets of smoke caused by the falling debris of downed drones. Well, it's a classic. The largest petrochemical complex is on fire, but Russians are being told about pockets of smoke. Well, it's just a bit of smoke, that's all, nothing more. Later, official sources added that the main facilities were not damaged. And later on, they also stated that the fire had been extinguished, although, well, it seemed like they were only talking about smoke before. But the good thing is that this doesn't eliminate the lines at gas stations. In fact, it only adds to them, and Russian officials can call it whatever they want. That same night, Ukrainian drones attacked the Afipsky oil refinery in the Krasnodar region. This is one of the largest oil refineries in southern Russia. According to the local emergency headquarters, there is a fire at the plant. In addition, the Ukrainian source Crimean Wind clarifies, the first explosions occurred around midnight. A really powerful fire broke out and the flames started in the tank farm area. And here is an important detail. The Afipsky oil refinery is focused on export deliveries. That means the first strike targeted the domestic market at Salavat in Bashkortostan. The second strike targeted foreign currency revenue, specifically the Afipsky refinery. Ukrainian defense forces are operating in both directions simultaneously, and in total, strikes were recorded at 16 locations that night. In the village of Afipsky, the Stanitsa of Smolenskaya, and the Kovalenko farmstead. As a result, Russia has reached the point where they are actually acknowledging a disaster. The consequences of the strikes can already be seen thousands of kilometers from the front line, and now we have news from the Altai Krai. Altai Krai is excellent. From the front line, and now we have news from the Altai Krai, where Russia has won its first victory in the rankings. Продукции всей Сибири. I've already talked about how Russian farmers timidly and carefully said that disaster awaits us ahead if there is no gasoline. Harvesting crops is impossible if a combine or tractor is stuck on the road and can't reach the field. And today, the administration of the Berlinsky district of the Altai Krai, following a meeting of the Emergency Commission, published a document that is worth reading out word for word. Quote, "The situation in the housing and utilities sector and in agriculture is assessed as extremely tense. In these sectors, there is a high risk of halting current operations due to a shortage of fuel." And further in the document, it is stated that only the police, firefighters, hospitals, and energy workers are supplied with fuel on a regular basis. Everyone else gets it if possible, or if there's enough. As you can see, farmers are not on this list, and it's actually harvest season for them. The only 2 private gas stations in this area haven't been working for several weeks, as it turns out. And as the local authorities stated in their appeal to the Kremlin, and I quote, "People are forced to get by as best they can, travel to other cities for fuel, and wait in lines there for 5 or 6 hours." As a result, at the commission meeting, a proposal was made to declare a state of emergency in the area. And here's a joke for you. The authorities of the Altai Krai stated that they are trying to reach an agreement with the government of the Russian Federation and the Ministry of Agriculture to provide fuel to agricultural enterprises so that, quote, "they can simply harvest the crops." Well, how naive they are. Putin doesn't care about your problems at all. He only has one thing on his mind. It's war and killing civilians in Ukraine, and your fate is to endure it. So what if you don't harvest your crops? Vladimir Putin doesn't give a damn about you either. But the Altai people are still trying to somehow reach out to this mad dictator. And so, Maria Prosakova, a deputy of the State Duma of the Russian Federation from the Altai region, warned that the shortage of diesel fuel, the refusal to sell it to farmers in canisters, and the sharp rise in prices could lead to a food catastrophe throughout the entire region. Here is her quote. "People don't know how they are going to harvest the hay, and the crops might be left in the fields. The harvest in the agricultural regions is now actually under threat." Another deputy, Stepan Frontenko, previously warned of the risk, quote, "of a complete shutdown of all agriculture in the Irkutsk region due to the lack of fuel. Farmers are complaining about a crisis in the Volga region, the central Black Earth region, and in the south of Russia. In short, farmers can't get enough gasoline anywhere. And let me emphasize again, right now it's harvest season, but they simply can't gather the crops. And this is no joke. The scale of the problem for the country is such that the Altai Krai accounts for almost 30% of all agricultural production in the Siberian Federal District. And on top of the fuel shortage, there's also a drought. Some of the fields, as stated by the Commission, will be considered a total loss, and this year the yield will drop by 30 to 50%, and even that they can't manage to harvest. So soon, Russians in this region simply won't have anything to eat, but they supported the war, that's for sure. The sea is a separate front. After the Ukrainian hunt for the Shadow Fleet in the Sea of Azov, Russian authorities stated that they are ready to redirect cargo to other routes and that this supposedly won't affect export capabilities at all. Let me remind you, they closed that Don Azov Canal there, or whatever it's properly called, because they can't ship agricultural products through it again. But redirecting cargo is always more expensive and takes longer. There are losses and so on. And when the government says it won't have an impact, it usually means it already has, and the Kremlin is just trying to find a way out. And here's what's important. Everything you've just heard isn't just a string of lucky breaks, you know? No, it's a system that Ukraine has just formalized institutionally. Let me remind you, on July 10, Zelensky signed a decree establishing a command for long-range global influence on Russia. And today, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine explained what all this is for. The essence of the reform is as follows. All units carrying out deep strikes into Russia using deep strike assets are being united under a single command. These are long-range strike drones, missile units, and unmanned maritime systems. You know, the very ones that set tankers on fire in the Sea of Azov. And now I'll quote the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The concentration of all long-range firepower capabilities. Having them all under one control system will allow a shift from isolated precision strikes to a unified long-term strategy. This will make it possible to systematically and comprehensively strike the most important elements of the enemy's military and economic potential, achieving an effect that cannot be obtained by using separate forces and means in isolation. And here is the official list of targets for the new command. Military infrastructure throughout Russia. Supply routes and command centers, enterprises of the military-industrial complex, and importantly, oil extraction and refining facilities that finance Russia's war machine. Well, according to the General Staff, this decision was a response to the rapid scaling up of Operation Deep Strike. Simply put, there have been so many strikes on Russia that a separate headquarters was needed for coordination. The result, Ukraine has moved from pinpoint strikes to the systematic dismantling of Russia's rear. There is now a fully fledged headquarters, a fully fledged command structure, a strategy, a list of targets, and importantly, there are results. Russian officials are increasingly saying out loud what Vladimir Putin is afraid to admit. A food catastrophe is brewing in Russia following the fuel crisis. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.